Alright, hello there, and welcome to another video. So, Starfield is a very interesting game, especially coming from Bethesda. If we look at the past Bethesda games like Fallout and Elder Scrolls, and then we kind of compare it to Starfield, there's a lot of design choices that Bethesda themselves opted to do or not do, depending on the circumstance of like the game and stuff. And in this video, the start of the series, I'm going to be talking about certain design choices either they did opt to do or they didn't, and just kind of compare to previous games, because I think Starfield is definitely I would say it's fair to say it's probably one of Bethesda's more controversial titles. In that it's a completely new IP, which for Bethesda, I mean, that's quite a big step for them, making a new IP. And some elements of the game, I think it succeeds very well, like say the space kind of starshipy sort of stuff. But then there's some elements of the game that kind of fall flat, and when you compare it to previous iterations, you're kind of like, what happened, Bethesda? So in today's video, we're going to be talking about the Outpost builder versus the settlement system, and kind of just go over, like, you know, why Bethesda opted to do that. Now, with all of this is all going to be very much speculative. We know very little, if anything, about why Bethesda chose to do the things. You may have some insight information, either that from, you know, being that you're aware of the CK or the engine sort of stuff, or maybe you just come up with your own ideas. Let me know. So yeah, so I suppose we'll start back in it. The gameplay in the background will have a mix of some of the Fallout 4, which is kind of what we'll talk about initially. So the idea of kind of a settlement builder, or like some sort of a kind of a we'll call it a settlement builder, or like kind of a base building mechanic. It's kind of new to Bethesda games, so we're not going to be taking into account mods. The first time we get to kind of build our own kind of custom area would probably be Hearthfire with Skyrim, where you have access to you have access to the kind of build your own house. You can choose there's three locations. You can build your main house, then you can kind of choose, I think, 3 wings and stuff. Very cool idea. You can really each kind of play through. You can have your own custom house. I used to love having the one. Mine was library on one side, storage on the back, and then kitchen, I believe, just because it was a nice mix, which is really, really cool. But it wasn't, Hearthfire was very much kind of like you throw the resources at the menu and it builds for you. There wasn't a lot of customization to it, aside from the fact that, you know, obviously you could choose which wings and stuff. Fallout 4 was probably the first one, or was the first one, to have an actual kind of a builder. It was named the settlement system, which obviously you're going to be seeing me kind of fiddle through the settlement system in this gameplay. The settlement system itself it's honestly groundbreaking. So with Fallout 4, you have they opted to make a load of locations around Boston, where the player could kind of take over and then build them to their liking. There was various different locations that had like kind of unique theming to them. Like there was a drive-in movie theater. You have Sanctuary, which is a kind of an old kind of pre-war suburban area. You had like a giant island. You had a camp on a hill. You had a camp up next to an overpass. You had like a little kind of a swamp area. A lot of very cool, unique locations, and you could customize them to your liking. There was loads of different kind of sections in the builder. You had structural pieces, you had decorative pieces, you had lighting, you had powered pieces, you had storage pieces, you had pieces that could for resource gathering and stuff. And with the base game itself, obviously there was tons and tons of customization options, but as the game kind of went on, they added more DLCs and stuff, and by the end of it, there was a crap ton of items added to the outpost or the settlement builder in Fallout 4. Like it was honestly quite groundbreaking in what you could do, and not everyone was a fan of this settlement builder, and I think the reason behind that was that Bethesda opted to remove a lot of the kind of the pre-built player settlements. So if you look at previous Bethesda titles, like say for instance Fallout 3, and we look at Fallout New Vegas, I know it's not technically Bethesda, that's more Obsidian, but in the wasteland, in the capital wasteland and the Mojave, there was a lot of pre-existing settlements. Like say for instance, we'll look at Fallout 3, you had like Nuketown, you had Megaton, you had Rivet City, you had like the Republic of Dave, you had Canterbury Commons, you had Big Town, you had Andale. You had like a few of these locations that were kind of like pre set up. They all kind of looked quite unique. Like you got Rivet City, giant floating aircraft carrier. You had Andale, little kind of, you know, suburban house hiding a secret. Canterbury Commons, a little kind of a plaza. You had Megaton, literally rebuilt from old bombers and like planes. And then you had like the Republic of Dave, which was just a compound of this like weird kind of cult dude, right? And with Fallout 4, they opted to kind of remove a lot of these kind of pre-existing settlements. There was a couple of settlements in the game, but realistically, the only two kind of ones that are of note is Diamond City and Good Neighbor. They're the only two real like designated like locations with friendly NPCs and like missions and like all the sort of stuff you would expect. And so Bethesda opted to instead kind of put a lot of emphasis on the kind of the settlement building, where you as the player can build these settlements and you can call in settlers and you can do crazy things. And I think that was probably why it was like why some people thoroughly loved it. I loved it, but some people didn't, because a lot of people like enjoy Bethesda's kind of, you know, their set design and their building. You know, like you look at like Megaton and like say like Rivet City and stuff, places like that, very cool. And Diamond City and Good Neighbor do a decent job of kind of doing that. But a lot of the other ones, like a lot of those locations, like you have like say there's like the farm that is south of Concord. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but like that's a little kind of, it's a farm built into a power station. Like these locations, a lot of them with the settlement system, where they are technically their own little kind of areas and they do have their own little flares, but because they're essentially areas for you to build upon, they're kind of, for the most part, they're pretty bare bones. And it's kind of up to the player to customize them. Now, some of them are more customized than others, but when you kind of look at them and compare them to previous Bethesda titles, some of them can be lacking. A lot of people probably don't like, you know, settlement building. Just not that they don't like it, but it's the idea of kind of having to do all that sort of work. There is mods that alleviate that. One of the biggest ones that stem from it was Sim Settlement, which was amazing. But yeah, so the Bethesda they brought out this new feature with the settlement system. For the most part, very, very cool. Now, Fallout 76 kind of expanded upon the settlement system, and by way of essentially adding it, kind of streamlining it more, and kind of making it more of a camp system. With 76 being a different style of game, being more of a kind of an open world game with kind of multiplayer, they toned down the settlement so that instead you were making your own little kind of your camp, right? So you had a lot of this functionality from from Fallout 4's settlement system just toned down. You weren't making a giant location for multiple people. You were making yourself your own house. Now, that being said, 76 recently updated their kind of camp system, and they improved upon the whole system a lot. Like, there's a lot more to it. Again, a lot of people who like the settlement system will probably adore 76's kind of camp system, in that because it adds a multiplayer element to the game, other friends and, you know, I was going to say family members, but other players can come and check out your camp and have some fun with it, which I think is is very, very cool in itself. Again, with the kind of the camp system and stuff, obviously the camp system's a lot smaller scale. Now, where does Starfield come into the mix? Well, Starfield has a kind of a builder in that of the Outpost system, the Outpost builder, and I think it's closer to the camp system from Fallout 76 than the settlement system, but I feel like comparing it to either does a bit of a disservice to either of them, because what it seems like, just going off of kind of the information we know, the Outpost system in Fallout, or sorry, the Outpost system in Starfield was meant to kind of act as what it is. Because of navigation exploration being a really big thing in Starfield, and fuel was, up until the end, fuel was supposed to be a really big part of the game. You would have to refuel and stuff. The whole point of the Outpost was that you would basically build outposts to refine fuel, and also harvest resources like materials and stuff to kind of build your own parts and stuff for like upgrading your guns, upgrading your armor and stuff. And to be honest, with the fuel system kind of gone out the window, the bare bones Outpost builder is just that, very bare bones. Like, I know there's a flourishing community of Outpost builders, but a lot of them rely heavily on modding because the base parts are very, very bare bones. Like, if we, like, again, go back to Fallout 4, we have walls, we have doors, we have defenses, we have structural pieces. The settlement system in Fallout 4, you get attacked. Now, in the Outpost builder in Starfield, I believe you get attacked, but I have never experienced it. There is no walls, there is no doors per se. Whereas in Fallout 4 and 76, you could build your own structures with a snapping system. You could snap floors down, snap walls down, snap windows, you could snap roofs, you could make these very intricate kind of structures. 76 similar. Starfield does not have the kind of the intricacy. Starfield, you're left with prefab locations. You're basically these habs, and I kind of understand it to an extent where like, you know, okay, like some, you know, habitats make sense with a lot of the planets being like no oxygen stuff, but there is quite a few planets that have oxygen and are breathable and stuff, and there's no real alternative to kind of make your own little settlements. Like, let's say, for instance, if you want to make a little hunting lodge out in Aquila, in the wilds of Aquila, you can't do that, not without mods, and even with mods, you know. Or like, let's say you want to make a nice greenhouse with like loads of different like plants and stuff in one, like the wilds of Jemison, you can kind of do that. When it comes to like the actual structural pieces, the defense is again very bare bones. In Fallout, you have turrets and stuff, but you also have like kind of static defenses, like kind of bunkers, little kind of cover systems, like kind of like trenches almost, little kind of different things. Starfield doesn't really have that. You've got turrets, you've got some robots. The idea of the settlement system in Fallout 4, one of the biggest things was that you could hire or you could find settlers, and they would work for you. You could assign them jobs. Now, there isn't necessarily in the base version of Starfield, you can't really assign them. There is robots that you can place that them just being there increases like various stats and stuff. But for the most part, everything is kind of automated, and it seems like they took there is a DLC for Fallout 4 settlement system that adds manufacturing. You can basically set up the ability like conveyor belts and manufacturing machines to manufacture everything you would need: ammo, weapons, meds. You can break down stuff to the raw components. It seems like Starfield kind of just took only this from Fallout 4's system and just kind of went with that. Like, yes, you can use the Outpost system to craft any sort of materials you want. You can build these giant kind of manufactorums, you know, producing all sorts of materials from you know, from the stuff you need to upgrade your like I said, upgrade your 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 um your weapons and armor, to even just like kind of like mass producing parts to sell. And ultimately, I feel like that's what a lot of people tended to use the Outpost system for, either a way to just generate a crap ton of money, or people just used it to kind of cheese XP. That's what I did when I was trying to get the level 100. I just basically did the farm where you make the outpost on a specific planet. You like have your your refineries refining, or your mining things, mining your ore, and then every hour you just craft. And I feel like it's again it's like a step in the wrong direction, because again we've know like the snap system is gone. And to be honest to it, like to be fair to like so with the outpost system, there's a lot of, we have like a lot of decorative options, which with Fallout, to be fair to Fallout 4, we didn't really have a lot of necessarily decorative options. That you could decorate your camp and stuff, but you had to like place objects yourself. um Starfield kind of gives you a lot more kind of decorative options to play around with, but a lot of the decorative stuff, it doesn't really fit in the prefabs. Like the prefabs are just that. Like you might get a desk down there, but like for the most part, they're just these open blank spaces. Like a lot of the with the update to the ship builder or ship interior building, so you can customize the interior ship, that was not there at launch, but that was one feature that was added, which is very cool. I just feel like that it's almost like, even though the ship decorator didn't come to later on after launch, it's almost like the a lot of the features of the outpost builder was intended more to be for the shipbuilding. Like the decorative and the kind of the furniture fits more in with the kind of the shipbuilding, because with ships you obviously have habitats and stuff. You've got more like structural pieces. You've got your 1x1s, your 2x1s, your 3x1s, your 3x2s. So you can kind of build a more homely location on your ship than you can with the outposts. And it's a very weird one, because I feel like obviously one of the biggest features I want to see with Starfield is an overhaul to the shipbuilding system, but I think right behind that is an overhaul to the outpost system. Because like again, if you look at 76 got some big improvements to the outpost system, or to the camp system as it's called in 76, to the point where like you can do like a lot of the kind of the things like even in Fallout, like say Fallout 4, like merging pieces inside of other pieces. They basically made that easy, which is really, really cool. And I would love to see them, even though obviously 76 is a different game made by a different studio. It's not technically Bethesda anymore, I don't believe. It obviously is Bethesda, but there's like a studio helping them. I would love to see like some of that stuff kind of filter over to the outpost system, because even simple things like a snap system with like actual walls and doors of various different structures, just adding a snap system in general, like would allow, like just take the settlement system from Fallout 4, incorporate it into Starfield. There is mods that allow you to kind of have like settlers kind of, but it's either free mods or paid mods, and you have to kind of jump through hoops, and the system is not really there, which is funny, because you can hire crew members and you can assign them to like your outposts in Starfield, but again, it feels more like you're kind of making some sort of a work, like a manufacturing plant, as opposed to like a place you live in. It's almost like, again, they intended on your ship is the place you live in, and outposts are just there to kind of refine resources, which that may have been the case, and that at launch and stuff, but you can't really, what you have the settlement system in Fallout, and then you go to Starfield, and it's like it's just a step in the wrong direction. Even like simple things like with the like farming and stuff, like one of the examples of in Fallout 4, you can like farm a load of different resources and stuff, or farm a load of different food types. There's no real way to produce like food. Well, I mean, there kind of is, and there kind of isn't. We'll talk about that a little bit in a different video, but just to kind of explain what I'm talking about, like you can't really make like proper farms. You can have like greenhouses kind of, and you can produce certain things, but like plants in Starfield are used more as a kind of a component to make stuff, as opposed to being used by themselves. Like like in Fallout, you've got like Tato, you've got mute fruit, you've got You got melons, and obviously you don't have a whole lot, but like you look at like even you go back to Skyrim and stuff, you got like a whole lot of different like foods and stuff. Starfield doesn't really have that. It has a lot of foods, but like the kind of the ingredients to make the foods are pretty bare minimum. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Bit of a different video. Let me know what you think, and give me your ideas. Like, what do you think, like, when it comes to, like, why do you think Bethesda opted to kind of make the Outpost system so much of a downgrade compared to Fallout 4 and 76? And when it comes to kind of things you want to see Starfield get, how up there would an overhaul to the Outpost system be? So that's pretty much it, guys. As always, thanks for watching. I hope you like this series, and I will be doing more on them. If you have any ideas of things you would like me to cover from previous Bethesda games that Starfield misses, or things that Starfield did really well that previous Bethesda games kind of missed out, let me know. I have a few ideas, and yeah, as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.